Hello everybody and welcome to the Daily Splat. Today is the final video in our series of 20 reviewing the 2011-2012 English Premier League season. And today our team in question is last alphabetically Wolverhampton Wanderers, who coincidentally were last overall, finishing 20th with just 25 points. A very disappointing total for Wolves, considering that they finished with 40 points the previous season. Admittedly, finishing 17th in the 2010-11 season, it doesn't stand to reason that they shouldn't be in relegation trouble, but it's the way Wolves just sort of died that will be very disappointing for them. It'll be no surprise for anyone that I'm giving them an F overall. They did fail to stay in the league, and they failed dramatically. And it all sort of went wrong. I mean, it wasn't exactly going brilliantly come February, but it all went wrong when Mr. Mick McCarthy was sacked as the manager after being in charge of the club for close to 6 years and guiding them up to the Premier League. They did seem to have lost their way a little bit. They certainly were in a relegation fight, but they sacked him, didn't bring in anyone. They had designs on a couple of people. Rumouredly, Alan Kirbishley said yes, and then 24 hours later, after saying yes, said actually no. I do not want to board your sinking ship. And so assistant coach Terry Connor took over, and alas, poor Terence could not keep the Wolves from going down. They just continued to slide steadily, finishing with a whopping minus 42 goals on the goal difference as well. The next worst, coincidentally, were fellow relegated pals Bolton Wanderers, who finished with minus 31. Where did it all go wrong for Wolves? Just about everywhere, really. There were a couple of bright sparks. Stephen Fletcher certainly did get them a few goals earlier on in the campaign, but he faded like much of the rest of the team. So that was a shame. The signings just didn't work. It's that simple. The players that were there just weren't good enough to stay up. Neither Mick McCarthy nor Terry Connor could do enough to keep Wolves up. Vokes certainly wasn't a good enough striker. There was hopes that, Andy Keogh might be able to do them a job, but, he didn't. And, I'm just put up a list of their current squad. Wayne Hennessy, relatively good young keeper, but, he was one of the better ones, but couldn't really do enough, to be perfectly honest. They had Hunt, who wasn't as good as he'd previously been. There were Jody Craddock, was also not as good as he'd previously been. Carl Henry was thankfully not getting suspended as much, but equally just didn't play very well. You look through players in their squad. I'm just having a quick look at them now. Kevin Foley didn't really stand out. Roger Johnson was, I'm afraid, a bit of a flop, which was a real shame. And of course, that's 2 relegations in a row for him, so yikes. Sylvan Ebanks-Blake rarely fired, and they just didn't have a good enough side to stay up, and I don't think they had the belief to stay up either. So it'll be interesting to see what new manager I've already forgot his name, dang it. They got this Norwegian fellow in, former Norwegian international. There it is. I always forget to say his last name. It's Ståle Solbakken. Used to play for the Norwegian national team in the 90s, has a relatively good managerial success, and has now jumped over to this side, who are new into the Championship and hoping to rebuild. They've got a heck of a lot of rebuilding to do, though, so we'll have to wait and see. But yes, so long, Wolves. It was nice having you up for a couple of years. Certainly they, they have been out of the top flight previously to this. They'd had one season out of 20 that they were in the top flight before Mick McCarthy brought them back up in, I think it was 2009, yeah. So, they've had a little spell. It hasn't worked out. Now they've got to go down to the Championship and try and rebuild, and hopefully Ståle Solbakken will be able to help them out with that. So, the Wolves weren't wolves dressed in sheep's clothing, they were sheeps dressed in wolves' clothing, sadly. Sheeps aren't very good at football. So, that's it. The review of the season, all in all, is done and dusted. My own personal thoughts on the season? It was very good. Bit of a disappointing ending. I don't know what everyone else is going on about this fantastic late win. I found it rather cruelly tragic. Anyway, but that's me with my Man United tinted specs. I thought it was a remarkable season. I think the thing a lot of people remember from this season, aside from the success of Manchester City, will be looking at teams like Swansea and Norwich, showing that you can come up from the Championship into the Premier League, play exciting football, and stay up. Whereas the QPR approach of trying to buy the right players to keep you up doesn't always work. QPR staying up by this much, so they'll have to hope that they can improve. So hopefully we'll be seeing the likes of Southampton, Reading, and West Ham playing really nice football as well. I think this season will also be remembered, unfortunately, for the racism issue, I'm afraid. Obviously, two major cases: Luis Suarez's abuse of Patrice Evra, for which he was suspended for 8 matches, both in the Premier League and the FA Cup, and also John Terry's accused racial slur against Anton Ferdinand. Of course, he's been found guilty been found not guilty in a British court of law. However, he's going through FA disciplinary proceedings, which require different levels of evidence. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. And I think, all in all, it'll be remembered for some cracking games and some absolutely fantastic goals. Papis Demba Cisse, of course, his cracking strike against Chelsea. You've also got Peter Crouch's goal against Manchester City, which was my favourite. A couple of good strikes from, Ashley Young got a few in that I remember. I remember Wayne Rooney scoring from outside the box against Fulham, I believe it was, in a big 5-0 win. So there were plenty of cracking goals for people to look back on and review. I think one other thing this season will be remembered for is crazy results. The ones that stand out are probably Manchester United being beaten 6-1 by Manchester City, but in turn United beating Arsenal by 8-2. What a game that was. And in turn, Arsenal going to Chelsea and winning 5-3, and also beating Tottenham 5-2. There were some absolutely crazy scorelines this season, and hopefully there'll be a few more next season. Although, hopefully not the 6-1. Right, that is it. So that should be it for Football Chat for a while on the Daily Splat. No, actually, it's not going to be, because starting tomorrow, is going to be the previews. That's right, because tomorrow we'll be 20 days away from the start of the Premier League, and there's 20 teams. It's going to be a 20 video review programme, starting with Arsenal. Should be very interesting indeed. Okay, so we're going to be having them coming up over the next few days, so make sure that you stay tuned for that. We're going to jump straight into them, and I can't wait for the Premier League to come back. Okay, but that's it from the review shows, and yeah, see you tomorrow when we're talking about Arsenal. Until then, bye-bye.